This is a horror fiction podcast. You're listening to The Dark Lady.
Why, hello, darling. I've been waiting for you. Come closer. Let me whisper in your ear. I've been dusting a few books from my shelf. I've been cleaning and cleaning and cleaning, but I still can't get all the blood and cobwebs off of these pages. Maybe I should stick to audiobooks. Now let's see here. Should I tell you a scary story? Or should I tell you a love story? If love breeds horror, then why not tell you both? Tonight I will tell you the story of Death's Embrace. It's the story of an old soldier come home only to find a woman dressed in all white sitting at his dinner table. And truth be told, she will be the death of him. Let's start at the beginning.
Maria had forsaken me. Our bed was cold when morning came. The closet was empty, her shoes were gone. All she had left behind were the pictures on the wall. Maria looked so beautiful in her wedding dress, her eyes as blue as the sky, her hair as golden as the sun. How happy we looked before the war. If only I was still the man that once stood by her side. Strong, devoted, and unafraid. A man that could still dream the same dreams that she dreamed. But I returned to her as a nightmare, a ghost of my former self. The war raged on in my mind. It twisted me into a beast. It broke her heart to see me in such a state. Now there was no tomorrow. It was 3 minutes before midnight. I held a revolver and put one round in the chamber. I looked to my bedroom window. There was no moon and there were no stars in the sky. All I saw was darkness. I kept my eyes on the window. Time did not stop. Time kept ticking away. Ticking away. Time was eating away. Eating away. All I saw was darkness. I pressed the revolver against my temple and laid my finger on the trigger. The clock had stopped ticking. It was exactly midnight. A chair scraped against the floor outside my bedroom door. There was someone in my house, uninvited. I pulled my finger off the trigger and laid down my arms. The darkness was calling to me. I opened my bedroom door and entered the night. The long hallways of my home stretched out like a dark tunnel. The rooms were empty and all was silent. But when I entered the heart of the house, a chill crept up my spine. There was a familiar sense of dread and foreboding. I welcomed the feeling completely. I laid my hand on the kitchen door and pushed it open. It was pitch black. The flies screamed madly in the darkness, hungry for flesh. I slid my hand across the wallpaper and found the light switch. I flicked it 1, 2, 3 times. It was dead. I entered the abyss. The flies screamed louder and louder with every step. I reached out my hands blindly, touching the counters and cabinets. Then I found the handle to the refrigerator and slowly pushed it open. The kitchen was illuminated with a dim, pale light. I stood there calmly, inhaling the putrid stench of death and decay. Hundreds of black flies swarmed every crack and crevice inside the fridge, devouring all its contents. All of the food had turned green and rotten. Apples, carrots and peaches had withered to black. Green mould sprouted over butter and a half-eaten birthday cake. There was a rack of lamb sitting on a red dinner plate, crawling with black roaches and pale yellow maggots. It lay there like a crown of death, waiting to be placed on a dead man's head. Suddenly, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Goosebumps crawled up and down my skin. Someone was watching me. I turned around to meet my doom. There was a woman sitting at the table, watching me intently. She sat beside an open window, overlooking the garden. A shadow was cast over her face like a veil. Maria? No, it was not Maria. I stepped away from the refrigerator, letting the light shine on the shadowy figure before me. For a brief moment, I thought I saw a skeleton staring back at me. I blinked and my eyes adjusted. Then I saw a pale young woman wearing a plain white nightgown. She had long black hair that fell down her shoulders and onto the floor. She was thin and gaunt, but she was still so very beautiful. Who are you?
You know me. You asked me to come.
The woman's eyes were black and her lips were pale. Her expression was as cold as stone. She did not blink. Her eyes pierced through me. She could see what was left of my soul. I never asked anyone to come.
I'm not anyone.
The flies screamed louder as I approached the strange woman. She was the darkness that called to me. My base human instincts would have compelled me to run, to get as far away as I could from this thing, disguising itself as a woman. But it was time for me to accept my fate. I shifted my eyes to the crystal vase placed in the center of the kitchen table. The dozen white roses Maria had plucked from the garden the other morning had somehow withered away to black.
Are you the devil?
No.
Are you God?
No. But I know them both, and they both know me.
Her expression was cold, but familiar. I had seen her image before, in the corner of my eye, in fleeting moments and passing thoughts. She was the constant in the chaos, the shadow that followed you from cradle to grave. My hands began to tremble. I swallowed. My throat was dry. The flies became eerily quiet. Then I asked her, "Are you Death?" She only smiled at me. In my heart, I knew that she was. She motioned her hand across the kitchen table.
Sit with me, Jack.
I slowly walked to the other side of the table and assumed my seat with Death. Her presence was chilling, yet familiar. But I had never seen her so closely and so clearly before.
Where is your wife, Jack?
She's with her mother.
You scared her away.
Yes, I confessed. The woman had folded her arms neatly on the kitchen table. She was so close that I could reach out and touch her, though something told me that if I did, it would be the last thing I would ever touch.
Women in her condition tend to be a bit skittish.
I looked up and smiled at the Grim Reaper. I don't think you came here to talk about my wife.
You're right, Jack. I didn't come here to talk. I came here to collect.
I nodded at her. We had an understanding. I looked outside of the kitchen window that overlooked the garden. Nothing had changed. All I saw was darkness. I turned to admire Death's sweet, pale face. Do you have a name?
I have many names.
Which one do you prefer? She thought about it for a moment.
I suppose you can call me Lorelei.
Lorelei. That's a pretty name. Is it my time to go, Lorelei?
No.
No? What do you mean, no?
How many times must we do this, Jack? How many times have you slipped through my fingers? You're the one that got away. But this time, you came to me. So I thought I would give you the courtesy to wait here as you finished your business.
I sat there quietly. My head was heavy with self-doubt. I craned my neck towards the refrigerator. It laid there like a coffin. I flinched when a black fly landed on the back of my neck. I imagined my body rotting in a box 6 feet underground. I could hear Maria weeping over my grave. I don't know if I still can. I looked at Lorelei desperately as she stood up from the table to leave. Her white dress flowed behind her as she glided across the kitchen towards the side door that led out into the garden. Her feet did not touch the floor. I stood up when she touched the doorknob. Please, don't go. She slipped through the door and I ran after her. When I peered inside, the garden was gone. Instead, I saw a woman lying on a hospital bed. She was thin and sickly, but she was fadingly beautiful. The woman had long red hair and bright green eyes. Her eyes were half open and her lips were pale. The white sheets on the bed were stained with blood. Lorelei stood on the left side of the bed, casting a shadow over the woman and her baby. The heart monitor beeped weakly between Lorelei and the bed.
Do you know who she is?
The woman on the bed smiled and cradled the newborn baby in her arms. She looked content. She's my mother.
Rose. The doctors couldn't save her. They thought you would have died too. You surprised us all.
Lorelei did not hesitate. She reached out and touched Rose's hand. The heart monitor flatlined and the light faded from Rose's eyes. I tried to enter the room, but the door slammed in my face. I turned around. Lorelei was sitting at the kitchen table. It was as if she never moved from her place. I returned to my seat, not taking my eyes off the Grim Reaper. Where did she take her? Is she in a better place?
Isn't that one of life's greatest mysteries?
She knew all my secrets, but she would never tell me hers. So that was the first time we met. Where have I seen your face before? Lorelei turned her head towards the kitchen sink. Cold water fell from the faucet. It filled to the brim and overflowed, spilling onto the floor. I walked towards the kitchen sink and peered into the black water.
Castle Beach, June 3rd, 1994.
I closed my eyes and held my head under the cold, running water. I was 13 years old again. It was a beautiful summer day. There was not a single cloud in the sky. I was with my friends Mark and Anthony. We rode our bikes to the docks, and when we got there, we decided to go for a swim. I remember taking off my shoes, jumping into the ocean, and feeling the rush of cold water against my skin. The waves crashed over our heads as we swam. We were young and free, unburdened by the weight of the world. Suddenly, I was caught in a riptide and was dragged out into open water. I fought against the current, trying to make my way back to shore. My friends called out to me and cried for help. They could not save me. My stomach filled with salt water. I took one last look at the great blue sky before sinking beneath the waves. I sank deeper and deeper into the black depths. And as I was on the brink of drowning, she appeared before me. A pale woman with long black hair. She outstretched her arms towards me, and I reached forwards to accept her embrace. Then suddenly, I was pulled away from her grasp and dragged to the surface. I woke up on a fishing boat, coughing up seawater. I pulled my head out of the kitchen sink and gasped for air. I turned around to face Lorelei. She was still there, waiting patiently. She was all-knowing and all-seeing. She knew all my sins and all my regrets. I've done so many horrible things.
I know. I saw.
The stove suddenly turned on. The blue flames danced on the stovetop as an intense heat began to radiate from the oven. The door to the oven began to rattle, slowly at first, then quickly intensified. Something pounded behind the oven's door. Jack, it said my name. The voices cried out all around me. Jack, Jack. The door on the cabinets began to rattle. Disembodied voices moaned and screamed in pain. There were cries of anguish all around me. This was hell. I couldn't take it. I couldn't escape. The house rattled to its core. It sounded like gunfire. I don't want to talk about this. Lorelei, please, make it stop. She would not answer me. The chaos continued. Fresh blood oozed out of the cabinets and dripped down the walls. I felt their misery. I felt their pain. It was enough to drive me mad. I don't want to see it anymore. I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear it. I held my hands against my ears. To my horror, the cabinet doors opened. Long, shadowy hands crept out of the cupboards like snakes and wrapped their cold, black fingers around my body. The door to the oven opened. It glowed like red hellfire. The hands dragged me forward, pushing me down, and tried to force my head inside the oven. No! Stop! My hair, my skin, and my eyes were burning. I closed my eyes as the hands pushed my face against the oven rack. I opened my eyes and found myself inside a cold, unlit oven. The shadowy hands were gone. I hit my head against the stove as I pulled myself out. I crawled backwards until my back hit a wall. My heart was pounding out of my chest. I could not hide the wild, unhinged look on my face. Lorelei had not moved from her place. When I found the nerve, I stood up and walked back to my seat and laid my hands on the table across from hers. You say that it's not my time. If it's not my time, when will it be? Please, I need to know. What happens if I don't go with you tonight?
You'll live.
That's not what I meant. Please tell me something, anything.
You will live for many years. You'll have many children and grandchildren. Just don't strangle your wife in your sleep. Some of your kin will grow up to become killers. Just like you. You will be the last soldier from your platoon to die. The last soldier to tell his story. You will outlive them all, Jack. And when your time runs out, you'll die in your sleep. You won't feel a thing.
I don't deserve an easy death.
Most people don't deserve a violent one. But that can't be helped either.
If I go with you, will I get what I deserve?
That is between you and your God.
You are my God.
Then I only have one answer for you.
Lorelei stood up from the kitchen table and walked to my side. I stood up and stared at Lorelei longingly. She looked like an angel. The light at the end of the tunnel. As I stood before her, my heartbeat began to slow. My left arm became numb. It would be over soon. As my heart slowly died, I took a moment to look at the black rose petals scattered across the kitchen table. I remembered Maria sitting across the table from me. She sat on the chair like a flower wilting in a vase. Still, there was a glimmer of hope in her eyes. She wanted to tell me something important, but I would not listen to her. "Tomorrow, Maria," I said. "Just tell me tomorrow." Now there was no tomorrow. I held the back of Lorelei's head as she placed her cold, dead hand on my heart. In death's embrace, I remembered how beautiful Maria looked in her wedding dress. Her eyes as blue as the sky, her hair as golden as the sun. How happy we looked before the war. I pulled away from Lorelei's kiss. "I can't." I looked up. Lorelei had vanished. I looked to the window and saw the break of dawn. The darkness had faded away with the morning light.
The end. So there was a tomorrow after all. The rest of these pages are blank. The rest of the story is in Jack's hands. Here comes the sun. Time to put away my book and close the curtains tight. Until next time, this was the Dark Lady.